Hi, welcome. I'm Eric Linter with Starspeak for the second half of April 2018. We're going to start with some good news. It's a little bit of a repeat, but on the 15th we do have a new moon in Aries. This is a very providential day for a couple of big reasons. One thing a lot of people will be happy to hear, Mercury is turning direct on Sunday the 15th. That's early in the morning. It will take Mercury some time to gather speed as it changes directions, and it won't actually return to the point at which the retrograde began until the first week in May. So again, minds will change, facts may come to light. It's a time of seed planting this day. The new moon comes later, well after sundown, and in late Aries, the sun and moon are conjunct, but also conjunct Uranus, the planet of surprises, of inventions, and unexpected events of all descriptions. So there could be shocking news about any number of political leaders. People may make amazing discoveries or decisions. Life-changing events can be expected with this new moon. And as Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, I like to think of the new moon in Aries as the real beginning of the astrological year. So if you like it wild and crazy, if you enjoy life on the edge, breakthroughs, breakouts, awakenings, this is the new moon for you. Again, green light comes with a new moon. You know, it's the sort of cosmic reset button, seed planting time. But a couple of days later, there are more changes afoot. On the one hand, Venus is active during the early part of the week, forming an opposition with Jupiter in the early morning hours of Tuesday the 17th, and also that morning trining Pluto. This is going to help any number of relationships. It's a good omen for finances. And firming up commitments is a very important dynamic during this first part of the week of the 16th. This also happens to be tax day here in the States. Saturn that night is turning retrograde in its own sign of Capricorn. With so many political intrigues and kind of struggles between different agencies and political factions in our country, we can see lines being clarified even more sharply than they have been recently. Hopefully, the respect for law, for tradition, will be a guiding light with Saturn turning retrograde. And really, less than 24 hours later, the sun moves into a conjunction with Uranus. This is the morning of Wednesday the 18th. And again, this reinforces the notion of certain things spiraling out of control. This can be a harbinger of earthquakes, other major shockwaves in financial markets or politics. And for people on a spiritual path, it can mark a time of awakening and even enlightenment. So as you sit and do your morning meditation on Wednesday, be alert, be aware, and be awake. The sun enters Taurus on Thursday, April the 19th. This is late in the day, just before midnight, typically ushering in the sort of prime heart of spring, where flowers really are profuse, and just the splendor of the spring season, blossoming, and birds singing, the deep blue skies. This sensual part of spring always accompanies the sun's passage through Taurus. We have a few quiet days as we head into the weekend of the 21st and 22nd. Sunday the 22nd also happens to be Earth Day. Pluto retrogrades that day, also in Capricorn, the earth sign that has so much to do with our ambitions and our sense of what is important. And so it's a very good, rich environment for pondering what is essential. And the astrological energies of the moon on Earth Day aren't the easiest. The moon in the early afternoon slips into Leo, where it tests the sun in Taurus. Great for celebration of the majesty of this planet we live on, but there are also likely to be certain stresses when it comes to decision making and the sharing of power. Again, changes are on the way. It's a very busy second half of the month. Mars makes a wonderful alignment with Jupiter just after midnight on Tuesday the 24th, and this is a good omen for people who have travel plans to make, folks devising various strategies, whether they're legal or intellectual, are going to be very sharp-minded, insightful, and this is an aspect that favors deep thinking as well as decision-making. Venus goes into Gemini on Tuesday during the lunch hour, and here she takes on a more flirtatious, charming kind of guise. And this typically is going to be helpful for just socializing in general. But the next day, again, we hit something of a roadblock as Mercury is in its final square with Saturn. This marks, because of the recent retrograde, the third square that Mercury has been making with Saturn. And if you have been, wrestling with a decision, this could be the time to finalize your thought one way or another. Try not to get into too much negative thinking. Look for ways really to pursue ease rather than struggle. And as I like to say, keep looking up. Look for silver linings and other possible pathways rather than, just feeling stuck or that you've reached the end of the road. There are alternative paths available. And we see that the following day as Mars moves into a conjunction with Pluto. Input from partners can be very helpful. There are always alternative choices one can make. But that Thursday, the 26th, has its challenges too. We have a very long void, of course. Moon period really dominates all of the daylight hours. And while typically Thursdays are good days for planning the future, this particular Thursday, the 26th, is really more a time for reflection than forging ahead. The moon is in its waxing phase at this point of the month, and full moon fever really takes hold as we move into the weekend, the final weekend of April. It's exact the night of Sunday. This would be the full moon in Scorpio, opposing the sun in Taurus. Classically, in the Eastern countries, the spirit of Buddha is associated with the full moon in Scorpio. His spirit is said to return to the earth plane each year with this particular full moon. So again, if you are of a spiritual persuasion, it's a good time to tune in to messages from the Buddha. And fortunately, Saturn is well aligned with both the sun and the moon at the time of this full moon. So finally, we have something of a grounding and stabilizing influence, which many of us, I'm sure, will welcome, having been through a pretty disturbing few months here. But I think emphatically, this is a fabulous day, Sunday, the 29th of April, for planting. And if you want to get some of your early garden in, it's a pretty super environment with the moon in Scorpio, a fairly fertile water sign. And we close out the month with the moon still in Scorpio and making primarily harmonizing alignments with the planets Jupiter in Scorpio, Pluto, and Mars in Capricorn. So that Monday the 30th is really a good day for getting back to work, tackling complicated and demanding projects, and really dispensing with them handily. And that'll close out the forecast for April. I wish you the best. Thank you today for hearing this forecast. And if you want to contact me, I've received email at stars@ericlinter.com. I offer my daily forecasts at the spiritofchange.org website. Remember to keep looking up.